Thank you very much. I'm assuming you can see the screen. Otherwise, please shout.
Okay. No.
Excellent.
Okay.
Great. So the starting points and the premise of my presentation is for us all to agree that the complexity of the trade in wild non-wood forest products requires complex solutions to reduce the threats of both unsustainable and illegal use and trade, but also to enable the opportunities for conservation and livelihood benefits from sustainable and legal use and trade in these resources. This can only be achieved being a complex problem with complex solutions. So this includes regulatory approaches, such as creating good policies and regulations, which we've heard about just now. It includes non-regulatory measures, such as standards and market mechanisms. It does include consumers and end users who request or require the demonstration of sustainable trade, but also there are mechanisms on intergovernmental level when countries negotiate and regulate the trade, such as CITES, or Convention on International Trade. The voluntary standards and certification schemes appeared or were created in order to address consumer concerns regarding social, environmental, and ethical aspects of production. They do cover various aspects and sectors. Quite often, the issues they cover can be overlapping, but also they can be uniquely made to cover a particular issue. So clearly, there are standards that cover issues of quality, standards that cover the issues of biodiversity conservation or equitable trade. They evaluate performance against a set of standards and can be regulated not just by private initiatives, but also by governments or companies themselves. So there is a whole variety of the approaches. They also can be verified in a number of different ways. One example I want to give here is of third-party voluntary standards, and that's what I'm going to talk about further on. The reason they're special is because they allow for external auditing and tend to require more exacting scientific standard, also able to recognize responsible companies. Over last 10 years, a bit more, Traffic has been working in supporting the development of something called the Fair Wild Standard. And so my personal experience coming from engaging with this tool in particular. What is Fair Wild Standard? It is a sustainability standard with third-party audited certification for wild harvested plant ingredients as well as fungi and lichen. It combines fair trade principles with ecological sustainability. So really Fair Wild is a fairly unique tool in that its scope is only on wild harvesting, and it recognizes the unique labor system as well as unique ecological circumstances in which harvesting happens in comparison to farming practices, for instance. Fair Wild is recognized as a best practice by the Convention on Biological Diversity and CITES as well, which provides important entry point to policy making. Fair Wild is based on a lot of tools and needing robust practices that actually were mentioned already even in this session. So Fair Wild requires species and area management plan being completed. That provides also for the monitoring or requires the monitoring of species. It has a robust requirements demonstrating equitable trade in species and fair pricing situation, as well as traceability of goods and finances. Over this time, Fair Wild has been used and implemented in a number of different implementation or certification projects. And the distinction we make here is between certification being something driven by businesses, while implementation projects over years ranged from supporting the development of good regulatory systems using the Fair Wild good practice through to developing management plans for protected areas in order to ensure sustainable use of non-timber forest products and also demonstrate job creations and benefits from those areas. Also on this map, you can see the little shopping carts. So the shopping carts mean what they meant to symbolize is the consumer markets. So in addition to Fair Wild being implemented at the field level, of course, this is a global trade, and this is an important drive for enabling this trade and more robust supply chains through the consumer demand. Just to give an example of a bit of a flagship product for Fair Wild, Fair Wild licorice root is the first Fair Wild certified species and has been in certifications that are fair wild certified in Kazakhstan, Georgia, and Spain. In addition to demonstrating the sustainability from ecological perspective through a range of background documents that fair wild certification requires, as I mentioned already, fair wild has a robust social sustainability approach. In addition to requiring the payment of fair price, and that is a top up on top of, for example, organic certification or obviously conventional prices. It also requires the setup of something called the Fair Wild Premium Fund, which essentially is a community-based community benefit system or fund that can be used for different projects. This picture here is from Spain. And finally, fair wild products are available on the market. And what this allows, it allows the brands, so companies on the market, to speak about the wild harvesting and connect those areas, like in this case in Poland and Białowieża area, through to the consumers. So finally, what is the contribution to sustainable non-wood forest products for Europe's green economy through voluntary standards? In my opinion, they can help assure competitive and equitable value chains. I've tried to demonstrate here that Fair Wild Standard does present this best practice tool, which is very uniquely focusing on wild harvesting and provides ecological and social safeguards. But not all standards are equal. So some standards need to be improved, in our opinion. For example, EU organic regulation that often is used to certify wild harvesting doesn't actually specify in any detail what does sustainability mean. There need to be positive incentives for businesses to grow the market demand and uptake of standards, and they include fiscal instruments as well as policy approaches. And finally, there is a strong need for further communication campaigns to increase consumer awareness and choice of sustainably sourced wild plant ingredients, in particular in Europe, which is such a fundamentally important market. And on this, thank you very much.
Excellent. I mean, down to the second, you were on 6 minutes 40 seconds. So